Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant and all that. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news and updates. So basically what happens is, if you are on this channel, if you are watching this, if you are subscribed to this channel, then technically, let me just set this. So technically you are saving a lot of money. And how do you save a lot of money? Well, because I give you so much of valuable content. You don't have to go to consultants, you don't have to go to lawyers, you can do your own application. So that's a saving of a lot of dollars, right? Because if you were to do a one-on-one consultation with me, I charge $152 for 20 minutes, right? So if you're actually watching this instead and gaining all that advice free of cost, then you are saving all that money. So therefore, good advice and bad business advice for me, but good advice to sort of subscribe to the channel, be here, like, watch, share, and maybe you can help some other friends as well out. Right. So today is another weekly roundup where we talk about whatever has happened during the week in the field of Canadian immigration. Some good changes, there are always some not so nice changes. I do not know good or bad. It is always a matter of perspective. For some, it is always good. For some, it is always not so very good. Obviously, if it doesn't go in your favor, it's not so good. But we will get to all of that in a minute. Before that, let's get on with our weekly presentation, right? So starting with the quote of the week, the difference between a successful person and the others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. So true, right? And this is Vince Lombardi here, but it's so true. So many times it's not about whether you have strength or not, whether you have the courage or the knowledge or the will. I mean, it's always the will. Sometimes you start a journey, but you lack that will, you leave it midways. And again, I'm bringing it into the perspective of the Canadian immigration. You start, you get your WES done, your ECA done, you get your IELTS or CELPIP or whatever the language results might be, you get those done. And then somewhere, because the scores are not really where they want, you need them to be, and obviously not getting invited with the way the things are, you tend to, you lack the will, so you let it go and it's all gone down the drain. However, there are so many of you out there who have stuck with it. They've been able to keep themselves updated. They've been able to, stick with the whatever is happening. They've been able to upgrade themselves in terms of their scores, in terms of getting additional work experience, sometimes even changing their work experience to match with the requirements of the program. So many of them have been successful. At the end of the day, what matters is what you wish to do and how you wish to do that. Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date with us on Canadian Immigration Weekly news and trends, TikTok, Facebook, of course, and all these other platforms. Starting with the PNP draws, British Columbia, as usual, continues to invite candidates. There are some changes on the horizon for British Columbia PNP program, but that's for January of 2025, where they will change the criteria and conditions for the international graduate stream. But for the time being, in the regular British Columbia PNP programs, they did invite 83 candidates, which is a very small number. Then the numbers have gone down, overall in terms of how many people they invite. But they invited in the 4 draws. The scores have been quite high, and the range was about 130 in terms of the points. For international graduates, the score was 125, and for the semi-skilled and the entry level, it was 107. Overall, very high scores, but that's always the case, right? Whenever the number of invitations are less, by now you already know that the scores basically go up. Then Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. Somehow they have gone into a bit of a slumber. You don't hear much from them. They issued 48 invitations only, and this was also to a dedicated healthcare pathway with the Alberta job offer. So too many criteria is there. The CRS score, as you all know, is not a big requirement there. It's only minimum of 300. But again, having a job offer, being in a dedicated healthcare occupation, that probably raises the bar a bit too high. But again, 48 invitations were issued under this program in Alberta. 4th of April, Prince Edward Islands also issued 66 invitations to the Labour and Express Entry candidates. Now, at least with the Prince Edward Islands, they do announce their schedule in advance, so you know when to expect their draws. and therefore, you can always expect them as and when they happen. But again, the number of invitations, only 66, but then it's also one of the smallest provinces in Canada. This was the first draw of the month for the PNP and the sixth draw this year. In other news, and so basically not much happened in the PNPs, nothing much happened with the express entry, of course. I mean, you all knew this was a bit of a slow week, as you would like to call it. IRCC releases allocation of study permits for all provinces. Now, this obviously was the biggest news yesterday, which was released, and this has created a lot of flutter. And when I'm saying flutter, where does it create a flutter? Flutter is always created on the social media, right? So many people interpreting in their own ways what it means, what it doesn't mean. They're adding their own calculations, their own numbers, and sometimes so many things which are more interesting gets lost in translation. So instead, you know what, let's take a look at what the statement was and what it is all about, right? So we have a better understanding this way. Let me make this bigger. Yeah, that's good. All right. So Minister Miller issues statement on international student allocations. This was the release yesterday, April 5th, and net zero first year growth model, right? So what they're looking to do is they have established the number of international students whose permits will expire this year for 2024. And the target is to basically compensate for the same number of international students whose work permits are expiring. That is the whole idea. So for 2024, the target is 485,000 approved study permits, right? That is what they want to do. They want to have, because that is the number of international students whose study permits will expire. Now, they are saying then 20% of the students apply for an extension each year and remain in the country. So out of this 485,000, they will remove that amount, and then you get 97,000, bringing a total of a revised target of 364,000. Now, IRCC has already identified that the national approval rate is only 60%. So if you have to get 364,000 approved study permit applications, therefore, considering that there is only a 60% approval rate, they would then have to invite 606,000 international student applications. So that is the quota. That is how they have come to this number. That was how the calculations were made to come to this figure of 606,000. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. And honestly, I was totally confused when I was looking at this, because this paragraph just did not make sense to me. It says, some international students are exempt from the cap, such as the primary and secondary students. Of course, we know that. And the master's or doctoral degree students. So we know that they are exempt from the cap. That is what they mentioned earlier. IRCC deducted. Okay, I didn't understand the meaning deducted. Why would you deduct this number if they are not in the cap? So what is there to deduct? The estimated volume of these groups, which is 140,000. So they have deducted this based on the 2023 data from the target number of the approved study permits. Now, if you are going to remove this number from the target that you have for 2024, then doesn't that mean that that masters and PhD is also included in the cap? I mean, that's what it would mean, right? Because they are saying the resultant target is 236,000 approved study permit for 2024. So what that means is that earlier they announced a target of 364, right? That is very clear, right? Everybody knew that they have announced 364,000. We all know that. Now they are saying that the resulting target is 236,000 approved applications for study permit for 2024 after deducting the masters, which basically means they have included the masters and the PhD students as well in the cap. So there is a cap for them as well. It's just that they're not announcing it in the manner that they would have announced for everybody else, but which converts to roughly 393,000 study permit allocations to be made, considering the 60% approval rate. So there you go. That was a big confusion that has been created yesterday's announcement. Earlier they said no cap, but the numbers that they have calculated, obviously in front of you, are saying that there is a cap on the masters as well. So after that, they have finalized the provincial and territorial allocations. And what they have done is that in addition to whatever the allocations were, they have variables that may influence the numbers. And then they have made a percentage change for each province as well. No, coming to that, they have finalized that the cap space allocated to the provinces and territories is going to be roughly 392,000, because the total approvals that they're looking for is about 235,600. With that, Alberta, and this is where it becomes interesting. I'm just going to the next page. So we have the final. So this is the final allocation after top-ups. Now, they have been giving some top-ups as well based on the province's the amount of population, how many number of people live in that province, what was the previous year, so which is 2023's allocation, not allocation, what was the 2023's numbers of students who were actually approved for that province, all of that. So they made a top-up allocations as well, or top-up adjustments, which is C over here. To cut a long story short, because I'm sure you don't want to get bored with all these numbers at this point of time, Alberta actually got a 10% increase in their number of allocations. So it was an increase in their allocation, giving them a total revised allocation of 40,894, approximately 41,000 for the year 2024. That is what they will get. British Columbia has a decrease of 18%. So they will have only 83,000 this year, 18% less than last year. And mind you, the approvals are here, okay? The 83,000 is not the number of students who will come to BC. 83,000 is the number of allocations or number of provincial attestation letters, as you would already know by now. That is what they will be issuing to all these students to get the admissions, or the number of applications they will be accepting. So 83,000 is the application, but actual approvals will be roughly 50,000. So 41,000 for Alberta is the allocations, but actual approvals is going to be only 24,500. Manitoba will have a decrease of 10%. 18,000 applications, but only 9,000 students will be coming to Alberta. New Brunswick, on the other hand, is 14,651. I mean, compared to Manitoba, it's quite a smaller province, but that's where it is. And they will get 5,567 as international students. So on and so forth. Now, there are not too many colleges in Northwest Territories, so obviously the number of allocations are not very high. But can you see this? This is a 4,900% increase. I mean, I do not know how many students were there. Oh, of course, because Northwest Territories had only 4 students in last year. 4 students last year? Oh, no, that was the K-12. So all levels of study, they had only 39 students last year. And this year, they are expecting Northwest Territories to have at least 200 students. So 4,900% increase there. Similarly, for Nunavut, you will have 6,567% increase in their allocation, which is pretty interesting. Nova Scotia, again, also very, very popular province in terms of studying there. 20,378 allocations. Actual number of students who will be coming to Nova Scotia, only 7,744. Trust me, there are some universities and colleges there which are going to be very, very disappointed. And the biggest one of all, the largest allocation was given to, of course, Ontario, because they tend to have the largest number of, they also have huge number of universities and colleges, and they also have the biggest number of the chunk of the students. So therefore, the allocations, when I'm saying again, allocations, just to remind you, this basically means that these are the number of applications that will be accepted. The approval will only be for 141,000, which is almost less. I mean, it's what, 41% drop, and so on and so forth. And you can see the numbers here as well. So this was the advisory that came from IRCC. And this is where, a lot of people got into a flutter. And I'll talk to you about some very interesting numbers in a bit. But this is what the main advisory was yesterday. And the data shows, that some provinces obviously got a higher number of allocations. Some obviously got much lower. For example, Ontario, that is where the whole thing is. Now, the comparative analysis in a different manner, and that is what today's video headline was, that the international students are going down, but the immigrants are going up. And with that, let me just, obviously, the only way to do that would be to, where did my screen go? Oh, sorry, just give me a moment, because for some reason, this page was not open, so we didn't have that here with us. Always these small issues. Yeah, have it here now. All right. So what happened is Ontario made some announcements on the 5th of April. Okay. And what they announced was that the nomination allocation has changed. So Ontario's 2024 nomination allocation is now 21,500 nominations. Now, why that is important, I'm not sure how many of you keep yourself up to date in terms of what's happening in last year. Last year, the nomination allocations for Ontario was only 16,500. It was already a very big news because the previous year, which was the year 2022, Ontario's nomination allocation was only about 9,750, roughly 10,000, less than 10,000 actually. 9,000 something was the actual number for Ontario in 2022. So for 2023, the number was changed to 16,500. And already at that point of time, Ontario had announced that for this year, it is 16,500. For the next year, it is also going to remain in the range of 16,500 to 17,000. So there isn't going to be much increase for the nomination allocation. But yesterday's announcement came that there is an increase of 5,000 numbers, right? Trust me, that's not a... And the reason why this is so huge is because you have to understand that the total number of permanent resident targets for the year 2024 has not changed. It has remained the same, 485,000. The PNP quotas, or the number of people who will be given nominations for this year, total has not changed. But for Ontario, 5,000 extra spaces were fitted in. I do not know where this 5,000 is coming from. We will find out as we move along as to where this 5,000 is coming along. But I have a feeling that this is the negotiation that has happened with the provincial government and the federal government. Again, it's a speculation, right? I don't know how it is, but trust me, 5,000 is a big number when it has been allotted to a nomination. And the reason why it is a big number is because, on the other hand, they got an increase of 5,000. Alberta, on the other hand, they also made their announcement about 3 or 4 days back within this week, where the premier of Alberta has come out and said that they were very upset that their nomination allocation has been reduced. So it was 10,150 for the year 2023. For the year 2024, it has been reduced to 9,750. So it's not a big drop. It's only a drop of 400, but it's a drop. It should have been increased, but instead it has been dropped. It has been reduced. So Alberta lost 400 nomination at this point of time. Ontario has gone up by 5,000. We don't know why and how that happened. But if you actually see, if I'll take you back to that, where is that page here? I have it here. Yes. Alberta has an increase of 10% in international students, right? Increase. That's the allocation increase. But their nomination numbers have gone down. Okay. So what happened here? And at the same point of time, Ontario has a decrease of 41%, but their nomination numbers went up. Okay. So is it that there is some sort of a change of strategy here? Is there some sort of, a bit of a different kind of negotiation that is happening between the provinces and the federal government? As in, okay, you are giving me less allocation of international students, at least increase my nomination numbers, because I want to keep my numbers in my province higher or better or increased or whatever. Because mind you, a nomination application, a provincial nomination application, with regards to the number of people, if an international student is coming, it is usually only one student, right? In some cases, the family might be there, but now we already know that international students, unless they are studying masters or PhD, will not be able to get their spouses to come to Canada. But as far as nominations are concerned, it may be one person, and that person could be married, could have children. So even if there is a sort of 5,000 allocations, they could then have multiple people there, and that could increase their number of people who will come to Canada. So that 5,000 nominations could actually mean 10, 15,000, 20,000 people more who will be coming to Ontario. So overall, you see, the number of international students is down, but the number of immigrants is gone up as far as the Ontario's allocations are concerned. Pretty interesting, factor there, as in how the provinces are negotiating. And if that has to be believed, and because 5,000 allocations have come from somewhere, right? I mean, the total number of the annual targets have not changed. Nothing has happened over there. And if Ontario has got 5,000 extra for this year, it has to come from somewhere. So already we saw 400 Alberta has lost. Now, I'm going to now put my neck on the line and think that is Manitoba going to lose some allocations? Is New Brunswick going to lose some allocations? Is Nova Scotia is going to lose some provincial nominations? Is PEI going to lose some? And more importantly, where is Saskatchewan? Why is Saskatchewan? Saskatchewan, are they going to lose some of the allocations, or are they going to gain? Because this is a 10% gain here. So if it is a 10% gain, sorry, I was saying it the other way around. So they have a gain. So are they going to lose, or are they going to gain? But all of this, we will have more clarity as and how more announcements come into play over the next few days. But with 10% minus here and 10% minus here, 18% minus here, the idea is probably they will get some nominations increases as well. But there has to be some reduction somewhere. I'm not sure where that is going to come from, because these Yukon, Northwest Territories, none of it, they are not in a position to give their nomination allocations away, because they already have a very, very small number for the nomination. But overall, a very interesting factor there, which caught the eye. That's basically it. Oh no, of course, we have a big one. The PR application fees. How did we miss this one? Now, PR application fees is going to be increased from the 30th of April. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of that. This was a big news which actually came into light on the 2nd of April. This announcement was made that the PR application fees are going to be increased effective 30th of April. Now, this is usually done after every 2 years, not after every 2 years, but it was last done in April 2022 with the intention of doing it in 2024. And the expectation is then again in 2026, there might be an increase. Comparison. And first, let me show you the increase of the fee. So this is the Gazette. Let me just increase this size so we have it bigger. More. Yeah, this is better. So this is the comparison of the current and the new permanent resident fee. As of right now, until March 2024, the right for permanent residence application fee is $515. It will be increased by $50 to $575. This is all your express entry, PNP programs, everything included, right? The federal skilled workers, provincial nominee programs, Atlantic immigration, economic programs, everything is here. Principal applicant, the main applicant, will be paying $850 for the application fees, is paying right now. They will be paying $950. So $100 increase there. Accompanying spouse or common law partners, same fee, $850 is current. It will be increased to $950. Dependent child accompanying is $230 currently, will be increasing to $260. And so on and so forth. Of course, there are other categories of permanent residence application fees, which will also be increased. But overall, the total increase is about 100 excuse me. Total increase of the PR application fees is about $150. That is the fee increase. But if we actually see the comparison, right? I mean, obviously, Canada gets compared to the other immigrant countries, as in the countries where a lot of people want to immigrate to. New Zealand charges 4,890 New Zealand dollars, which is give or take almost the same, I think, on the exchange rate. Australia charges 4,240. That's the Australian dollars, again, give or take on the similar currency exchange. UK, England, will charge roughly about 2,900 English pounds, which comes to about 4,900 Canadian dollars. Okay. And in comparison to all of this, Canada is charging only 1,525, the new fees, which will be the increased fee, Canadian dollars. So that is the comparison. That should give you a snapshot of how Canada charges, because I know there are a lot of people out there who say, well, Canada is doing all of this to make money. And sometimes when you look at these numbers and say, they have so much of room to make money, but they are leaving a lot of money on the table. Don't you think so? I mean, I know there's a different way of looking at different things, but as far as the PR application fees is concerned, well, they could certainly charge us more, but they are not. So it's only 1,525. So that will be your new permanent residence application fee. Starting from the 30th of April, this will be in effect at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, EDT. And if you submit your PR application after 9 a.m. on Toronto time on the 30th of April, you'll be paying a new fee of 1,525. If you pay before this, then you would be paying 1,300, 1,365. Is it that the number? Yeah, I think that's the number, 1,365. That is the PR application fee. Of course, you also have to pay the biometric fees, which is $85, but then that is payable anyways. There is no change to the biometric fee. $150 increase effective 30th of April, 9 a.m. Eastern time. That's all that I have for you for this presentation. Thank you so much for joining in. Like, share, subscribe. Of course, subscribe. Yes, subscribe is very, very important, because that way you get to sort of save some money and also get very valuable and genuine updates and information on Canadian immigration. On to the question. Okay, let's see this. Amal says, what is your opinion? Should Canada stop immigration for few years till current housing job crisis gets over? Oh, okay. I mean, you're asking that from an immigration consultant whose livelihood and whose business depends on immigration and people coming to Canada. But hey, you know what? I get trolled by a lot of people who keep saying that I am making a lot of money from international students. I'm making a lot of money from immigration. Well, I make money, of course. A lot of money or not, that is again a matter of perspective. Could be a lot for you, could be less for me. But the point is, should Canada stop immigration, or will Canada stop immigration? Now, the numbers, data, statistics suggest that Canada cannot stop immigration, cannot. And the reason for that is because their aging population, okay, who are entering the pension stage, who are out of the workforce, is increasing, and the number of people who are at the age, who are in the workforce, who are the younger generation, that numbers is not as high as they would like to be. So therefore, they need the new people. Think about it. If there are no new immigrants, right, and more people are aging and getting older, and the newer people are not coming in, where, and obviously as the older people are getting into the retirement stage, right, so they are now taking over, they're taking the pension plans, so they're not contributing to the taxation anymore. So who's going to pay for the taxes, right? Who's going to bear the burden of all this healthcare and all the people who are going into retirement? Who is going to fund all of that? That is number one, because taxation for countries like Canada is extremely important. I mean, we all cry about the fact that we all are always dissing the fact that taxation is extremely high. Sometimes about 42 to 48% of your total income goes towards taxation, direct or indirect, which by any standard is very high. But again, all this money has to go towards the healthcare, the schooling, the civic services, and of course to the pension funds as well. And though it does come back, in a way, it is always reflective of what Canada needs. So therefore, the emphasis is always that you get more points for the younger you are, you get more points, because the younger you are, the longer you will be able to pay taxes. So you see, there is always some method to the madness. And therefore, do I think Canada will stop immigration? No, I don't think Canada will stop immigration. However, considering what is happening right now, you see, at the end of the day, everything is political. Everything plays to the tunes of a political agenda, not only in Canada, everywhere in the world. Of course, you know that by now. As of right now, there is this anti-immigration sentiment in Canada, and that has also been fueled by the government. You see, because when the housing crisis happened, or when the inflation is rising, when the interest rates are rising, the cost of living is rising, you have to blame it to somebody. If you are a sitting government, if you're a sitting government, you're a majority government, or even the coalition government, you have to blame something. You're a politician. You will have to put it onto somebody else. You cannot say, I did wrong things, or I made wrong decisions, or it was my fault, it was my poor governance that has resulted in this mess. You're not going to say that, of course. That will be the end of your political career. Instead, you have to find something. So initially, the blame came on international students. Now, mind you, I am not saying that the numbers are not to blame, but who brought the numbers? So if you say international students are to be blamed for the housing crisis, well, that narrative is wrong. It's not the international students who are resulting in the housing crisis. It's the high number of international students which you as the government allowed without any restrictions to come in. That is the reason for the housing crisis. So that whole narrative has to change to identify where the problem is. The problem is not the international student. The problem is not the immigration. The problem is how you have gone about doing the whole process. And for example, every government is forward thinking. You're always looking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I mean, learn from learn from countries in the Middle East. They're already thinking 2035. They're already thinking 2040, 2050, and they're putting things in place. What did Canada do to consider that? Okay, you're now announcing your immigration levels plan for the next 3 years. You have announced for 25, 26, 27. Do you also have housing plans? You also have healthcare plan? Do you also have infrastructure plans for different cities where all these people are destined to go, or where you think people will be going based on the past trends? That is where the problem is. Now, obviously, current government is already limping. They already have one foot in the grave in terms of how the public opinion is, or the polls are. Will immigration stop? No, immigration is not going. At least in my opinion, immigration will not stop, but it may take a hit. It may take a hit in terms of restrictions. It may take a hit in terms of more emphasis towards people inside Canada rather than outside Canada, because transitioning people from inside Canada, from temporary residents to permanent residents, you achieve two targets. You achieve your permanent resident targets, and at the same point of time, you lower the number of temporary residents, and it has no impact, additional burden on the healthcare, on the housing, on the education or school, whatever that might be. So I have a feeling, and again, that was also indicated by Mark Miller in a very recent, where he said domestic draws is something that they're going by. So collectively, I personally feel that you will see those kind of changes coming in. And of course, if there is a smart immigration minister who's really intelligent, forward thinking, looking at the way things are, instead of making populist decisions, like somebody who's already done that in the past, or using band-aid solutions, somebody's got to make a tough call, right? And that's where things might start start improving. It may not happen immediately. It will happen over a period of time. But yes, that's what I think. I don't think immigration to stop immigration is going to help or work or matter. But what will matter is how you make those changes. For example, right now, I was listening to this podcast. Why are they not making enough houses? There is enough land. Why is the cost of real estate so expensive in Canada versus in the US? In US, the land is less, population is more. In Canada, the land is more, the population is less. And yet the housing cost is so expensive. It's so ridiculously high. Again, there is a lot of political agendas there. The zoning laws are not in the favor of more buildings to happen or more construction to happen. Just to get a zoning to change from to bring it to a level where you can start doing your commercial or residential housing, it can take years and years. So much of mess there. So I guess somebody will have to, political will is needed, and somebody will have to raise their hand and say, okay, they will take the decision, some tough calls to make this better. Yeah. So that's how I would look at it. Okay, don't you think it's the type of international students we are attracting that the government, I don't know what that means, that government now that has an issue with? You see, when you are saying type of international students, I do not know what you mean by type, okay? Because this type has also been chosen by the government. You see, last year they have reduced the IELTS requirements, or the IELTS band requirement in SDS stream. Why did you reduce? You should have increased it. Therefore, you are then streamlining better English speakers in your education system. You did not do that. You did not come down with heavy compliances on the international colleges or the institutions in checking as to what is their criteria when they're recruiting international students. You let it go unchecked when they were making rampant recruitment, trying to get anybody and everybody. You allowed for so many PPPs, the private public partnership programs, to happen. You allowed for so many career colleges and so many of those strip mall colleges to operate. You never checked on their compliances. When I'm saying you, I mean the government, right? The government never did any of that. Now, suddenly today you say, oh, there are too many international students, they're making a problem. Again, the blame should not be outwards. It should be inwards, as in you were the ones who made this mess. Now blaming it on international students as a big, huge, large community, that's not fair. And when you say type of international students, I honestly do not know what you mean. I do not know what you are referring to when you say type. If you're talking about the isolated cases of a road rage issue there, or people dancing in some places out there in the public places and those kind of things, Well, when you invite students, you have to expect that the students will behave the way students are. And I'm not typecasting or stereotyping there in terms of how students should behave or not behave. But the point is, if you are going to call 1 million international students, there will be a select of them, there is a small group of them who will behave in a manner where other people will have an objection to them. That's normal. That's in any society. I mean, otherwise, look at the rise in the car thefts and auto thefts across Canada. I mean, who are you going to blame that on? Similarly, you typecast refugees that they are the ones who are creating this problem. You typecast certain nationalities that these are the people who do this kind of a thing. But that typecasting doesn't help because it's generalizing the entire community. So when you say the type, I don't understand what you mean by the type. I pray they approve my visit visa. I pray too as well. Surprisingly, the success rate of visit visas lately has been quite decent. So yeah, I wish you all the best. How will the new LMIA validity period of 6 months be applicable for express entry draw? Those two things are unrelated and not connected. LMIA is for temporary foreign worker program. Express entry is for permanent residents, not connected, both these things. If you have a valid LMIA, from the date of issue, it is valid for 6 months. Within that 6 months period, you get invited and you submit your PR application, then that is the validity period, right? And you will get your 50 points. But if the LMIA expires and you haven't submitted your PR application yet, then you will not get those 50 points. However, if you have an LMIA, it is valid for 6 months. Within the 6 months, you apply for a closed work permit. You come to Canada on that closed work permit. You start working on that closed work permit. So while your work permit is valid, you can still claim points for the job offer, 50 points, even if your LMIA has expired, right? So these are the small nuances that you have to be aware about. Okay, I previously had an LMIA for tier 1. Now my employer has promoted me to senior manager. Do I need to obtain an LMIA to receive 200 points in my express entry profile? Yes, of course you do. That's the first thing, number one. Number two, a senior manager may not necessarily give you 200 points. 200 points are for positions like vice president, president, CEO, CXO, CTO, directors, general managers. These are some very, when you say senior manager, from whatever your tier 1, from tier 1 to 00 might be a very far stretch to jump. So please check what that NOC code is that you're getting. The NOC code has to be 000. That's what gets you the 200 points, not 20, not 10, not those NOC codes. It has to be 000 to start with. That's what will get you the 200 points. Canada became third world country. Well, okay, it's a matter of perspective. I will not debate with you on that one. Bhavya says, I'm at 503. Any chances? In my opinion, and it is purely my opinion, I feel all 500s will get cleared out at some point of time within this year, sooner than later. Okay, and then what else have we got? Similar questions, so I'm not really going to go into that a lot. Am I eligible for CEC under STEM category? Is it okay if I show CAD 4,000 proof of funds? I'm married, we are family of 2. Well, if you are CEC, you can show 0 as proof of funds, because if you're a Canadian experience class, you are exempt from proof of funds. You do not need to show any proof of funds at all. Wish from, when in Ontario can we update our immigration profile after receiving signed documents or obtaining the marriage certificate? Now, your question is very confusing. I'm not sure what you mean by when in Ontario can we update our immigration profile. Well, technically, if you are married, then whoever is the required authorities that you need to, because I don't know what your question means. When in Ontario, when can we update our immigration profile? Yeah, once you're married, then you're married, and then you update everything where it needs to be updated. Current study and work permit expires in August. Graduating and applying for postgraduate work permit in May. While PGWP is in processing, if I travel in June and come back in July, can I re-enter and start working? The answer to that question is yes, you can. There is no problem with that. I know you lose your implied status, but only and only in the case of postgraduate work permit, you may still return back and continue working. There is no problem there. Navdeep, I'm sorry, there's no question there. MB says, I have 1 year of Canadian experience, and while studying in Australia, I worked part-time for 20 hours per week. Can I count 20 hours or just 15 hours max per week towards the 1560 for foreign experience points? This is a good question and something which really confuses a lot of people. So let me clarify that for you. Okay. Maximum number of hours that you can claim points for is 30 hours. 1 year of full-time work experience comprises of 12 months, 52 weeks, 1,560 hours, which basically comprises of 30 hours per week. If you work for more than 30 hours per week, that additional hours are not counted. However, if you work for less than 30 hours per week, the exact number of the hours for that week are counted. For example, if you work for 28 hours in 1 week and 42 hours in the other week, so your work experience, when it will calculate or when you will calculate your hours, it will count 28 hours and 30 hours for the following week. It will not calculate 42. Okay, so the less number of hours, the number of hours which are less than 30, they will be calculated on actuals, and the number of hours more than 30 will be restricted as 30, will be counted only as 30. In your case, your work experience will be counted as 20 hours per week for whatever period of time that you worked in, and not at 15. I hope that clarifies. Rajesh says, I used tier 22222 in the Ontario foreign worker job offer stream application. Can I use 21222 different tier in the express entry? I have responsibilities from both tier code. Well, technically you can, because Ontario's foreign job foreign worker job offer stream is not linked to express entry. So yes, you can use a different NOC code. That is not a problem. The thing is, with Ontario foreign worker job offer stream, your job offer letter, the employer, whatever they have given you as your job offer, that should match with the NOC code that you are indicating in your Ontario application. As far as express entry is concerned, you can choose a different NOC code whenever you're providing documentation to establish the validity of your work permit or the validity of your work experience. That should be as per the NOC code you're choosing. So please watch the job roles and responsibilities quite carefully. To get 50 points for LMIA exempt closed work permit, which is C20, does the 1 year experience need to be on CL work permit only, or prior postgraduate work experience can be considered? Well, as far as IRCC is concerned, they say that you should, in order to claim points for that employer, for the LMIA exempt job offer, you should have 1 year experience on the closed work permit with that employer. That is the requirement. So you can also check the ministerial instructions. I don't have it handy with me, but let's just quickly look at this so that we don't get it wrong. Okay, so this is right. Let's see this. Let me get rid of this question first here. Okay, what is qualifying offer of arranged employment? Let me see if I can find the correct. Okay, qualifying offer of arranged employment. Okay, so I think you are looking for the LMIA exempt, which would be an offer of continuous full-time employment for a total duration of at least 1 year from the day on which permanent residence visa is issued. That is a requirement. And the offer is supported by a valid assessment of LMIA, which in your case is not the applicable aspect. Foreign national holds a valid work permit issued under the circumstances, and that specifies the employer or the employers that made the offer, which basically means closed work permit. And the foreign national works for an employer specified on the permit and has accumulated a total of at least 1 year of full-time work experience. Now, here it does not say that you should have accumulated your 1 year of work experience on the closed work permit. It says you have accumulated at least a total of at least 1 year of work experience with that employer. So you can use this language in your benefit and in your favor. And to answer the question, it will remain in the gray area. This is how IRCC will interpret it, and as and how they interpret it, they might choose to make a decision. But you can take a copy of this. This is the ministerial instructions. You can take a copy of this. You can highlight this aspect. The foreign national works for an employer specified on the permit. So it's a closed work permit. You're working and has accumulated a total of at least 1 year of full-time work experience. Okay, because it is and, because of this word and, it can be interpreted that this work experience should be while you are on the closed work permit. And at the same point of time, this and could also interpret that this work experience may not have been on the closed work permit, but also could have been on your postgraduate work permit. I hope that helps. I know it's not a very clear answer, but I can't give you the clear answer until I've seen a lot of aspects of your application. Plus, this will remain in a gray area. Okay. I have got exactly 5 minutes, and I will do as many questions as I can before I scoot off. So Hardik, where is Hardik? Yes, 2 years of Indian experience, 1.5 years paid in cash, rest by check, employer offered experience letter for IRCC. Any concerns for PR file? No. If it is a genuine work experience, you are paid in cash, get a cash salary certificate and a salary certificate which says this was in cash, this was by the bank. You provide the bank statements, you show the salary being transferred, you're good to go. I've done a semester online from India, but same times I did job in India. Can I claim this work experience? Or should I hide this? Hiding is not a good idea. Hiding is never recommended. I will never ever say that you should hide anything at all. If you are claiming points, you will provide the documentation. If you are not claiming points, you will show it in your personal history. If you are in India, if you are outside Canada, even if you are studying online for a Canadian program, you can still be working. There is no problem. That will be counted as valid work experience. I got the tier 2 level job of a technical support at AIP. Will my tier 2 level food services experience for 1 year in Ontario be eligible for AIP? Yes, because the criteria is that you should have 1 year of experience. It doesn't say it should be in the same occupation. How to prove common law relationship strongly? You have to prove 3 things. First one being the length of the relationship, and the length of relationship is for at least 1 year. You have to be cohabitating. So second is cohabitation. So you will have, and the third thing is the interdependent economic. What was that word? Intereconomic dependency. I keep forgetting that word. Okay, so what you're trying to do is, first of all, you're trying to prove that you are in a relationship for at least 1 year. So the documentation that will prove that you are in a relationship for 1 year and have been living together for 1 year, that is what you will need to provide. The fact that you are in a genuine relationship, that is the second set of documents. And third is documentation for any kind of financial exchanges between you, which shows that you have been, taking joint care of the expenses. Marriage in Canada, except marriage certificate, what necessary documents should we submit? Is it okay if we do not submit lease agreement? Again, I do not know what kind of an application we are talking about. But if you are married in Canada, then you will provide the marriage certificate. Yes, that is the most important document to establish that the marriage, this is a marriage. And what other documents there is? Again, I do not know what application type we are talking about. It will matter a lot. As far as express entry is concerned, it's just the marriage certificate until IRCC then asks you for additional documentation. I did 3 certifications without any gap for 2 years. Can these certifications help me? Vocational trainings are not something which you can get points for. You can try and send these certifications to WES. If WES will give you evaluation of a 1 year diploma or a 1 year certificate, 1 year graduate certificate kind of a evaluation, then yes. If not, then you will not be able to claim it. Post biometrics, no update on profile, similar updates, OAOR, got COPR, any suggested action? Suggested action is have patience and wait. And looking at somebody else's application, please do not freak out or fret over it. Everybody has a different application. Everybody has a different processing time. Everybody has a different officer who processes it faster, slower, their own background, their own backlog queues. So just because you did not get, somebody else got and you did not get, that doesn't mean that your application is in trouble. But if you want to figure out, you can always order GCMS notes. You can always call IRCC and have a brief update on your application. But the idea is to just have patience and wait. Nova Scotia has started prioritizing some occupations and delaying PNP application processes, taking up around 6 to 8 months. Any facts in it? No, this seems like a speculative statement. Again, something similar to the previous one. Some people who are in a specific occupation and they get their COPR faster, everybody starts thinking, oh, because it's this occupation, this person got it done faster. And because mine is a different occupation, I did not get. There is no truth to that. At least there is no data to suggest something of that sort. And if you have any specific doubt of this manner, then you can always write to Nova Scotia and ask for clarity. What is my current status? I have valid work permit and TRV and I'm outside Canada. You do not have any status because you are outside Canada. Only once you are in Canada and you have a valid work permit, then your status is that of a worker until your work permit expires. I have applied for spouse open work permit on February based on my spouse 1 year postgraduate diploma. She will travel to Canada on May. Will I be eligible as per latest rule based on TRV? Will I be eligible for what? For what? Again, the question is not very clear. I mean, I do not know what you're asking me for. Will I be eligible as per latest rule based on TRV? I have no idea what you are asking me. You applied for spouse open work permit in February, which was before the March 19th effective date for the restriction. And if your okay, basically now I'm understanding. So you're saying your spouse will travel to Canada on May. She has not yet traveled. She is an international student. You applied for spouse open work permit before she traveled. Yes, you will still be eligible for your spouse open work permit. I hope you have provided all the documentation, and you should get an approval if you have provided all the documentation, because the restriction, the date for restriction was only effective of March the 19th. Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining in. I really, really appreciate it. We will do this again, of course, every week as we do it. And please don't forget. Oh, hold on. What is this? Yes, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because, hey, the channel needs to get subscriptions, right? And you're not paying anything for it. So by subscribing, all you get is a bell notification. So whenever I go on live and there's a new video, it might be another call for you to save some more money, right? Of course, follow us on Instagram. If you wish to book an appointment one-on-one to discuss more about your application, this is the link. By all means, please use this link, book an appointment. We can always talk more about your application and your races. Thank you so much for joining in again, and I shall see you next time. Take care.